Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be John Wick Chapter 4, number 2 would be Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, number 3 would be Shazam Fury of the Gods, number 4 would be Scream 6, and number 5 would be Creed 3. And Okay, so this isn't looking good. I got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. And yeah, there was a movie that came out that totally blindsided me as per usual, blindsided everybody else mostly as well. But I also made a bold prediction that John Wick Chapter 4 was going to have such a great staying power and Dungeons & Dragons might have, you know, there's some stigma towards just, I guess, the original movie that came out. And, you know, it's an IP thing, but, you know, are people going to really show up for it in this day and age? I don't really know. Like, it's just kind of a gamble even with IP. It turns out that I got that prediction completely wrong, so let's go over what happened actually. Number 1, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves actually reported that it did a little bit better than what the early estimates were doing. What we talk about right here are the earliest of the weekend numbers. So by Monday afternoon, I guess, when you get the official ones, this could cross over into 40 million for the opening weekend. Right now, it is sitting at $38 million worldwide. That adds to a total of 71 million on a budget of $150 million. That's not bad, and especially since it was doing better than expected. The cinema score is really high on this. The Rotten Tomatoes scores, both critic and audience, are really high. I think word of mouth is really going to spread for this thing. A lot of people are really excited about this too. I guess I really am underestimating of the D&D fan base. I went back to AMC to see A Good Person, and in the lobby were a bunch of D&D nerds just hanging out, we're gonna go see the movie, and I was like, yeah, the movie's probably going to do a lot better than I'm expecting, you know? And that's just really great, you know? I think there's definitely going to be an uphill battle with Mario right around the corner. It's literally this week, guys. But the fact that people are talking highly about this, and the fact that Mario is just one movie after you see it, you know, you've got all this other time to go see movies. You know, Easter Sunday's right around the corner too. You know, some people are going to have, you know, kind of a mini break, like a mini high school, middle school spring break kind of thing. So there's plenty of time to go see some of these other movies. I think this movie will have great staying power over the next couple weeks, and I am hoping that it gets to a point where it doubles its $150 million budget, proves that this is a success. Let's talk about it compared to the original Dungeons & Dragons film, because it, you know, cleared that immediately. It's $31 million over the original film's opening, and it's already outgrossed the entire domestic run of that film by $23 million, and worldwide it's outgrossed it by $38 million. So that Dungeons & Dragons movie is completely irrelevant, not just, you know, comparing the charts here, but probably just in pop culture in general, because you have a good one that's it's not just oh, it's serviceable, oh, it's fine, you know, it's because there's sometimes where a movie comes out that's maybe a remake of another thing that was done poorly before, and it's well, it's competent at least, so, you know, there's that, you know, but this is it's a legitimately kind of great crowd-pleasing movie, so yeah, you really don't have to think about that original anymore, you know, it's not just, well, it's fine just because it's better than the other one. I guess a good example of that would probably be when they remade Tomb Raider a couple years ago. That's really the only one that comes to mind, but I'm sure there's other examples. I wanted to also talk about the directors, Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley. There's only really 2 other films that they have directed that we're going to be comparing this film's box office results to over the next couple weeks, Vacation and Game Night. Right now, it is still behind both of those movies. It did have higher opening weekends than both, though. 24 million over Vacations, 21 million over Game Night. So I'm expecting this movie to outgross both, obviously. It's just how long until then, basically, that we're going to be tracking. So right now it's behind Vacation domestically by 20 million, and worldwide it's behind it by 31. But like I said, give it some time, we'll get there. I think it will outgross both, and that's really exciting, because this movie, it would be one thing if it was I mean, it was, you know, it was a solid movie, but it's not as good as Game Night, so I'm a little bummed that more people don't know about Game Night. Game Night's kind of had a really good, cult following ever since it's been released, so I'm not really worried that much. I think both can coexist, and one's not going to be overshadowed because one's more popular in IP, but one is obviously the better choice. Both are great movies. Go see Dungeons & Dragons. It's a really great movie. Number 2 was John Wick Chapter 4. I had a really high hoped that this would, because of the word of mouth, it's the best action movie of this decade so far. Oh my god, haven't been this exhilarated since Mission Impossible Fallout or Mad Max Fury Road. This movie had like a pretty significant, like 60%-ish drop. I'm not as worried about it, you know, compared to something like a Shazam or AntMan, just in the sense that it is already, like, we talked about it, you know, last weekend. It opened big, you know, it was already on its way to double its $100 million budget. In fact, right now, worldwide, it is at $244 million. So not only has it doubled that $100 million budget, but it is only $56 million away from tripling it. And I don't want to spoil anything about the movie, but they, even themselves in the marketing, kind of said, like, yeah, this is the setup for, like, the conclusion of this series. There's been, like, rumors that, like, some studio executive still just want to make a John Wick 5 anyway, so if that doesn't show you that this movie is just, you know, it's doing fine already, you know, there you go. The drop-off doesn't mean anything compared to Shazam or Ant-Man, where it's kind of expected that those need to make a ton more than, you know, even they're even maybe saying. That being said, once again, similar to how, like, Mario is around the corner, these movies are all competing with each other. D&D, John Wick, Scream, and Mario, all this stuff. So I think, you know, give it a couple weeks. They will all have their time with other audience members. It's just they're all kind of on top of each other. I think these will all have great staying power. I think John Wick 4 is obviously, you know, it's not like, man, it had a great start, but man, it could have made so much more if it wasn't for fucking D&D and Mario. It's like, I think it'll be fine. Just these things can coexist. And I think, you know, the strong word of mouth for both of these movies will definitely help that as well. This movie made $28 million this weekend. I should probably talk about that, which adds to a domestic total of $102 million. So it has outgrossed John Wick 2 by $30 million and is now behind Parabellum by $49 million. And worldwide, I already said it made $244 million now. It has outgrossed John Wick 2 by $73 million, and it is $83 million behind John Wick Parabellum, numbers that are achievable, you know, next weekend pretty much. So we'll be seeing it become the highest grossing John Wick film by next weekend, which is, you know, that's awesome. And I can't wait, you know, to see that happen, because this is a movie worth celebrating over. Anyways, let's move on to number 3, which is His Only Son. This is the movie that blindsided me, and I should have known just because it's a week before Easter, and I kind of got a sense from, like, the poster, like, yeah, it's a little, you know, religious-y, but for some reason it didn't click with me. I was checking, like, AMC listings, like, what else is playing in theaters, and I just assumed, I just glanced over it, like, oh, all these other movies out right now, no one's gonna give a shit about this one, and I was wrong. It made $5.5 million this weekend on a budget of $250,000. So that's like, this is doubled, tripled, quadrupled everything, that budget, you know. It's like, it's kind of amazing, like, all things aside about the movie, you know, that's pretty amazing, you know, to release a movie with that low a budget, and it, you know, does pretty, you know, significantly well, you know. Not that this hasn't happened before, you know, but this is just, I don't know, it kind of caught me off guard when I saw it. I wasn't expecting the budget to be that low. I haven't seen the trailer. I haven't seen a single frame from this movie. Like, when you see the picture in this video for, the movie poster, that's like the first time I've seen it not, like, like shrunk on the AMC listings, you know? So I don't know a thing about it. Maybe it could look really fucking cheap, like really bad. But either way, you know, they have a hit, so there you go. I don't give a shit about this movie, so let's move on. None of you give a shit about it either, so let's move on. Number 4 was Scream 6, making $5.3 million, adding to a domestic total of $98 million. It is $3 million away from outgrossing Scream 2's domestic run. Worldwide, it is sitting at $147 million, so $14 million behind Scream 3, but $3 million away from $150 million, you know, that's pretty, I know that's not like a specific number tied to anything, but that's a pretty good number to reach, all things considered. That's pretty good. Like, this and Dungeons and Dragons, like, it's, Paramount's been kind of on a roll lately, like, not just Top Gun Maverick, but, you know, they are the ones who released Smile last year. They did Scream 5 beforehand too. Paramount's kind of, you know, they're kind of looking like the place to be, and Mission Impossible's right around the corner. Like, yeah, they're riding a fucking high, and I'm, you know, that's pretty great. Obviously Babylon flopped, but like the fact that they, you know, even wanted to distribute Babylon at all, you know, like that's actually pretty ballsy of them, and I can respect them greatly for that. They're kind of on a roll, and I'm happy to see it. Moving on to number 5, which is Creed 3. I was wondering how it would hold considering, you know, news, but not, since really not much has, you know, come more from that situation that, you know, I won't talk too much about here. You know, it's holding over pretty, you know, expectedly, for a movie that's been out for like about a month now, and it has already, you know, made its money back and all that. It made $5.0 million, adding to a domestic total of $148 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $258 million. So $42 million until it outgrosses Rocky 4. I think, you know, maybe a couple more weekends and we'll get there. I don't know if it has any more places to release worldwide. Maybe this is the one that'll just get really close and then it'll drop off. I know it just hit like VOD though, or something like that. Like it's premium on demand, $20 rental or something like that, which I really wish they would stop cutting distribution runs so quickly just to get to the fucking like rental market like immediately. But that's just the world we're living in for some of these fucking people. So what the fuck else do you want? I like Shazam, like not to just jump into number 6, but I have nothing else to talk about with Creed 3 other than it's a success. So let's move on to number 6, which is Shazam: Fury of the Gods. That movie, they already announced like a release date for its like a VOD streaming stuff. Like, oh yeah, it's going to be like April, like the second weekend of April or something like that. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's like, yeah, it's like soon. And it's like, damn, like this movie was already doing poor enough and then you undercut it even more. Like, well, it doesn't even matter. Fuck it. And yeah, the fact that Shazam: Fury of the Gods, if in case you didn't notice, I predicted that to be number 3, and with his only son disrupting everything, Shazam didn't even stick around for number 4. It dropped below Scream and below Creed, which is, you know, pretty sad. I mean, it had a pretty significant drop-off last weekend as well, so, you know, it's not that surprising that it would keep dropping, but I was still kind of hoping, you know, maybe, you know, the excitement of John Wick is out of the way, and I didn't expect Dungeons & Dragons to be the same kind of hit as John Wick, which technically it's not, so maybe Shazam still has a chance. It's looking like it's not. It made $4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $53 million. It is still $87 million behind the first Shazam, and it is $2 million away until it outgrosses The Suicide Squad, so there's that. It's gonna finally outgross the COVID DC movies, Wonder Woman 1984 and The Suicide Squad, but, you know, we're out of COVID, you know what I mean? Like, you should have done that a lot sooner. And worldwide, sitting at 119 million, it is 41 million, still away until it outgrosses Wonder Woman 1984. So it's like, domestically it's on its way, but worldwide it's still behind one of the COVID DC releases. That's weird, you know, and you know, of course, 244 million away from the first Shazam. That's also not looking good. For David F. Sandberg, I thought it was just in the bag, like, oh yeah, you're gonna clear Lights Out, obviously, but it is sitting, with this drop-off, it is sitting 14 million behind Lights Out domestically, 29 million worldwide. I don't think that's gonna happen at this point. Like it made $4 million this weekend. Maybe just by a sliver, it'll outgross Lights Out, but you know, that being his first, you know, film, he should have definitely cleared that, you know what I mean? And this is just a testament to just the state of, I guess, at least DC at this point, or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just this specific movie, and it doesn't have anything to do with comic book films. I see some people calling like, oh, the fatigue is finally set in, and I don't really buy that for everyone. I think if Guardians flops, or if the Marvels flops later, then, you know, we will have a problem, and we'll have more of a conversation about it for those videos of box office talk. At number 7 is a movie you probably have not heard of, but it is a movie that I have seen. It's called 1001. I'm not sure what the budget of this thing is. It's a movie that like had like the day I saw it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. It was like a special come see it early kind of screening, but it was like available, like the listings were like available. It wasn't like you had to print out a pass. It was like an early screening that was like through Fandango. I don't know what it was. But it made $1.8 million this weekend. Like I said, I don't know what the budget of this thing is. It's pretty, you know, it's a, you know, low budget movie. It's not like it's the most expensive thing in the world just by looking at it. So I can't assume that it's like on the levels of like even like a mid-budget movie. But even then, you know, I don't know what the budget is, so I can't really speak much more about it. It was a pretty good movie. So if you do want to check it out, if you're curious, now that I'm bringing it up, it's pretty good. You know, it's kind of like, for the longest time, I think I'm watching just a regular drama, and then there's you know, kind of like a twist, and it's not like this like thriller, kind of like, whoa, you know what I mean? It's not like, you know, it's not an M. Night Shyamalan kind of thing or anything like that. It's just, you know, a kind of grounded, you know, dramatic kind of twist that changes, you know, everything that you've seen prior, and it's kind of neat, you know, so check it out if you want to, and help it be more successful if it isn't, which maybe it's not. I don't know. Let's move on to number 8, which is 65, which is probably not a success. It made $1.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $30 million. So worldwide, it is sitting now at $54 million. So we are about $36 million away from its doubling point for its $45 million budget. So, I mean, it's about, that's the thing, is that we have Mario, Paint, and Air coming out next weekend. That's, you know, 3 movies. So that means realistically, this bottom three are probably the ones that are getting pushed out. So I can't see 65 sticking around any longer. I'm surprised that, it didn't drop out immediately because, even though the initial trailer release was like, oh my gosh, this looks kind of goofy, there was like nothing else to market it really. Like no one was really talking about it. And then when the reviews came out like the day before the movie premiered, I believe, it was just kind of awful, you know what I mean? The reviews weren't really great, or they were just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like the positive reviews were just kind of like, it was fine, I guess. So not really much to keep people that interested. So I'm kind of surprised that it stuck around as much as it did. But I mean, it hasn't been out that long, so I don't know what I'm saying also. So let's move on from this one to number 9, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, making $1.2 million, adding to a domestic total of $212 million. It has not outgrossed Ant-Man and the Wasp. It needs $4 million more to do that domestically. Worldwide, it is sitting at $466 million, so $52 million behind the first Ant-Man. So domestically, it's still behind Ant-Man 2. Worldwide, it is still behind Ant-Man 1, and nowhere near Ant-Man 2 yet. So that's how it's going to leave the top 10. I'm assuming it's going to be gone, you know what I mean? I can't see, any of these three really sticking around when you have 3 kind of movies coming that will potentially push out everything else. So, yep, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. If there's any movie, did I mention worldwide it's at 460? I probably did. Anyways, moving on. The only movie in this bottom 3 that I can just maybe see sticking around just a little bit more, still at the bottom, is our number 10. Only because it's called Jesus Revolution, because, next week is Easter, and we already have His Only Son, and Jesus Revolution's been out for a little bit, but if any of these 3 movies that, with the 3 movies coming out next weekend, pushing 3 movies out, the only one that I can maybe potentially see wiggling above 1,001 even is probably Jesus Revolution, just because subject matter and timing. Either way, that doesn't matter. Let's move on. It made $1.0 million, adding to a domestic total of $50 million. So it has tripled its $15 million budget, past the $45 million point. It's got $500 million domestically. No worldwide totals, but domestically, that's pretty great. It would need $10 million more to quadruple the budget, and I, don't see that happening. But pretty good success, similar to, well, not as similar to His Only Son, but just similarly, it's, faith, Christian kind of movies doing well with limited budgets. If only more movies could learn from the limited budget thing, I guess you could say, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm done. Let's move on. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, easy. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. Like, that's it. That's the number 1 easy. That's going to clear. It's tracking to make, like, obviously there's the 3-day weekend, but then there's the 5-day weekend. It's tracking to make like 100, 120, something around there. So it's going to smash. Number 2, I think Dungeons and Dragons will remain, ahead of every other movie. Number 3, I think will be John Wick Chapter 4. I think it had its big drop, the 60%-ish one, but I think it's going to kind of stick around a little more easier now. And then number 4, it's either this movie or Paint. And I think Air has a slightly bit more of a marketing push for it. It's, tied to Michael Jordan, sports fans. So I think Air has a bit more of a chance of getting into the top 5. I don't think Paint has been marketed nearly as much as it needs to be to break into the top 5, because number 5, I think, will be His Only Son. I think just because Air has a little bit more of like a, any person can see this kind of quality, and His Only Son is kind of like very specifically Jesus, you know what I mean? I think it'll stick around, but I think it will be at number 5. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.